Hey everyone, welcome to a little bit of woo-woo. I wanted to continue my little series on how to develop your own intuition, because I really think that's a big key for everyone right now, is to figure out how you can do you better, but how you can sift through all of the BS out there and sort of understand what's really going on for yourself without having to hire someone like me, which I would love you to hire me, but it's nice if you can kind of figure it out on a daily basis. And there's tips and tools that some of our experts can give to talk about how you can do this better on your own. And our expert today, I'm so excited. You've seen her before. She's been on the show. Jackleen Holton has been working professionally as an astrologer and intuitive counselor for 26 years. Her career began at the legendary Phoenix Phyre Books in Encinitas, California, and her study of astrology began many years before that. She currently works as an astrological life coach, supporting clients all over the world. And I have told you guys that I see an astrologer and a psychic. This is her. So when I talk about somebody that I'm going to see, this is the one I'm going to see. So welcome, Jackleen. I'm so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited because you do a lot of interesting, cool things that I don't think other people do. I don't know, maybe they do. It's just I've always seen you, but Jackleen does some cool stuff with dates. Like, tell us about what you're doing with dates, because I know if I need to launch a book, or if I need to do something like contact someone for a business inquiry, I'm like, Jackleen, give me a list of dates that'll work out for. Tell us about that.
Yes, you want to live in harmony with nature, and this podcast, your topic was how to boost your intuition, right? And the number one way to boost your intuition is to live in harmony with the nature, with nature, and to know your moon sign. Actually, my life changed again a few years ago when I was listening to a podcast. It wasn't even about astrology or anything like that. It was about politics. And the podcaster said something like, quoting someone else, said, sun signs are patriarchal. And it just clicked into place for me, because I've been doing all this work with the moon. I've been doing moon circles. I write my newsletter at every new and full moon. And it just clicked. Yeah. It's the moon sign. It's the moon sign we're after, because I'd been living kind of a little bit left of center of my true place. My sun sign is Capricorn. Now I like to say I'm a recovering Capricorn, and my moon sign is Virgo. Not a whole lot of difference, but it really is when you look at it. So you want to know your own moon sign, and you want to know when your lunar return is, because that is a very intuitive time. As you know, being an intuitive yourself, intuition is a double-edged sword. It often comes with a lot of sensitivity, maybe a little bit of irritability, and sometimes a little bit of paranoia, right?
Yeah, no shit.
Was that intuition, or was that, or what did they mean by that? And that's what happens when the moon comes back. Your sun has a birthday every year, and you know what that birthday is. You go and you celebrate it, and it's fun until the sun moves over, right? It moves over, and then all of a sudden it's a bummer. I don't know if you've had terrible birthdays. By the time that you were celebrating it, the sun had probably already moved over, or lame birthdays or whatever. But the moon has its own birthday every month, and that's the time when the moon returns to where it was in your birth chart. And that is a different kind of birthday. It's a birthday that should be observed partially in silence, some alone time. Don't care what your moon sign or your sun sign is. You probably don't want a ton of people around you during that time. It's sort of, I joke that it's kind of like the other time of the month, right? So you kind of want that a little bit of you're referencing yourself. You're meditating, you're doing yoga, you're maybe reading, you're kind of going within a little bit more, but your intuition is boosted during that time, as is your sensitivity. And I always tell people that on either day, it's 9 out of 10 times I'm talking to someone, I'm talking to them close to their lunar return, because you feel a little bit more like what's going on,
Interesting.
So you need grounding. Yeah.
So if somebody has a question, like they want to know, the Bob and Bill question is the one I always reference. Like, should I be dating Bob or Bill? But let's say it's bigger picture like that. What should I make a major life shift, or should I move to a new city? Would you suggest that they start to ponder those questions around that day, or how would you say?
That'd be a good time to meditate on it. And meditation is another one of those things. There's no substitute for that when you are developing your intuition. you either meditate or you don't. And if you don't, you're going off sort of half-cocked into the world. You're uncentered, and other people can take you off center and kind of lasso you and use you for their purposes, kind of catch your attention, advertising, all that kind of thing that we're all subjected to. So if we meditate before starting our day, harder now, I have a kid, but as doable as you know, as early as you can. But yeah, that's another thing that you can do. But yeah, these are questions that I think you need some objectivity about. I can pull cards for myself, but I'm often trying to make it fit what I want, right? I'm often trying to, and I can look at my own chart, but I'm often saying, well, that might just mean this positive thing rather than this thing I don't want to know, right? And I'm very positive in the way I read. You know, I always say that you're going to get hit by a bus, but I can tell you when you're on the wrong path or when you need to shift your path a little bit. But yeah, the Bob or Bill question, that is to me one of the easiest questions in astrology, because I can look at Bob's chart next to your chart. I can look at Bill's chart next to your chart. I'm like, no, nope. Maybe, right? And here's why. And I can tell you why. Because the moon's very important. Where's Bob's moon? Where is Bob's sun? Where is Bob's rising? Venus, Mars, all those things. Saturn, very important in relationships. You don't want someone who's a wet blanket on top of you all the time, right? So, yeah, I can answer that question. Another thing, I recommend this book. This is one of the resources I use every day. Not to advertise it, but it's really a good book. I used to use the Pocket Astrologer, but that I think went out of print. I don't think it's been in print for a while. But Daily Planetary Guide, it tells you where the moon is, tells you when the moon is void of course. And that is a time where you don't want to do anything. When the moon is void, anything like signing documents, for example, anything that's important to you, you don't want to do during a void of course. People go a little crazy about Mercury retrograde, and you have to do things. That's a long period of time. I like to point out the bright spots in Mercury retrograde, times when it's okay to do more stuff. But the void of course, I'd rather you do it during a Mercury retrograde than a void of course moon. So that's important too. And sometimes we have day-long or longer periods of void of course moon. Mostly, mercifully, they're a few minutes or a few hours. But it's good to know that.
Well, show me the book again. That was the Llewellyn. I know you don't work for Llewellyn, so this is not a sponsored post.
No,
Llewellyn.
The best one, Daily Planetary Guide.
Like that. Okay.
And it'll tell you also to do these opportunity periods, these kind of lucky times. I also do them on my Patreon, and I sometimes post them on Facebook, Astrology by Jackleen. And I've started to foray into Instagram, but not too far in that yet. But I'll post the occasional lucky day on those sites, but on my Patreon, I post them all.
Yeah, I saw that. She does have a great Patreon page. You guys should sign up for that. And it's really inexpensive. I mean, you really should charge more, but it's like $5 a month or something. If you can't afford that. If you can't afford that, there's serious things going on. But yeah,
I'm surprised that I don't have more people on there. I mean, you'll see, I have a paltry amount of people, but these are people who really are into living by the moon, that are sold on it, and who I have moon circles for my Patreon peoples, as my peeps that are on there as well. And we do magnetizing. We talk about what to expect for the next couple of weeks. I also do that in my articles, but yeah, it's really important to know what's going on with the moon, where the moon is at any particular time.
I love this because what you're describing, of course, the moon, the energy of the moon, this affects your daily business. This isn't just like I do these little prediction videos, and you guys, I really think they're fun for me to do. So I'm glad you guys like them too, because I'm like, I don't care if anybody watches. This is just fun. But what I love about what you're describing is this sort of daily energy, the daily sense of what the vibe is going to be around you. So you can get a sense of, should I really be making that decision or having that difficult conversation with my boss on this particular day, or maybe this is the right day, just feeling it out on that respect.
And I say things like that too. It's, there are days that you don't want to be having that conversation with your boss. It's just either the moon is void of course, or you've got power monger planets in difficult aspect to each other. So that's not a good day to do it. But we are having a lucky day tomorrow. So that's, from about 8 o'clock in the morning for throughout until the wee hours of Friday. We're having Pisces is one of the lucky moons. There are 4 lucky moons, and it's Cancer, which your moon is in. I was just looking at your chart, and you have a Cancer moon. Not to say that any moon signs are better than any other moon signs, but I'm talking about transiting moons. So Cancer, Pisces, Sagittarius. These are lucky moons. What's the other one?
Just to let you guys know, this is being recorded on 6/26, and this is the day before the presidential debates. And that tomorrow, it's interesting that the presidential debates are tomorrow during this lucky day that you're describing. How's that going to impact it? Without getting into politics, we're not going to get into that. But how would that impact it?
Okay. We are in the Pluto return. We are in the U.S. Pluto return, which means our democracy, our what we've established, our experiment, this grand experiment in democracy, is either going to live or die this year. So no pressure there, right?
No pressure.
But when it's a lucky day, I think it's kind of more like the good guys win. Whatever your idea of what the good guys are, or that justice, that equality, whatever it is, prevails, right? So it's a force for good no matter what. So that's kind of how I would.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your words, but interesting. You're saying this lucky day, and tomorrow we're expecting to get a bunch of SCOTUS decisions, Supreme Court decisions, for today, tomorrow, and Friday. I mean, obviously they've already decided by the time that they're going to speak about it, but that's coming out in the next 3 days. Today, tomorrow, next day, and maybe even before this gets posted. Some of them be interesting to see how that plays out. As hearing what you're saying about this lucky day thing.
Yeah, but we are in the midst of this really divisive kind of culture war, which is so Pluto return, right? The fabric of this country is being pulled to the right and to the left, and and what I'm seeing is there's kind of a rejection of both far poles, let's put it that way, for better, for worse. We saw that. I turned a few cards on some of the primary elections, and I got one result like, oh, I didn't want to see that, but you can't unsee it. When you pull cards, you can't unsee it. That's so I did, and I was like, okay. So I knew that one person would probably win the primary, and that person did, and then the other person, it was kind of unclear, but so you can do that. Speaking of pulling cards or using a pendulum or anything to get an intuitive hit, but the thing is, you have to accept it once you get that. I took one of my favorite stories about those kind of psychic tips, or I don't like the P word, psychic, but those intuitive little tips or things that you can do to get an answer. Is that I had a psychic development class several years ago, and I was instructing everyone to, use these different methods to ask different questions. And this one woman, God bless her, every time she was asking, should I stay with Bob? Should I stay with Bob? So she did the pendulum on Bob. She did the cards on Bob. She did, the whatever we did, the dice throwing on Bob. And she was just as confused as hell by the end of the day, because she was trying to get a right answer about Bob. She was trying to get the answer that she wanted about Bob, right? And everything was coming up like mixed messages. So it's just keep it to a minimum about one topic. I would say if you're going to sort of read for yourself, throw the dice or the pendulum or whatever, or throw cards. But I would also just say tune in first before you do that and get yourself centered. There's nothing that is the substitute right now for being grounded, because there's just so much energy swirling around there. There's so much to disagree on. There's just so much with our social media and trolls and bots and AI, and just we can get news 24/7. It's very, very uncentering. So take media breaks, especially during your lunar return. If you get something like this, where is it?
It's out of camera is where it is. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, it's kind of a counterintuitive.
I know.
But if you get something like this, or, find a way to figure out where the moon is during your lunar return, during those times you're going to be more sensitive, ground yourself, but ground yourself anyway,
I love what you said about the cards too, because Doreen Virtue used to have a deck of cards that had a yes and a no card in it. And I thought, I'm going to have some fun with this, because guys, I can't remember the name of the deck, but it's been pulled off the market. Huh?
The
What'd you say?
8-ball deck.
Which one was it?
No, I'm joking. Magic.
Oh, okay.
The Magic 8-ball.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Magic 8-ball probably would have been better, because I was having fun with it. I'm like, I want a yes or a no question, because you guys all know that everyone in the world knows that if you're asking a question about Bob and Bill, the answer is very subtle, like yes for now, or he's okay for now, or he has same-sex tendencies, which is fine, but it may not be what you want in a long-term partner. All of these little things that are subtle, but when you're asking for a hard yes or a hard no, all of that's gonna be missed. And I was messing with it, and I found a lot. I was asking something. It wasn't a Bob and Bill question. It was similar. Like, should I do this? Yes, should I go there, or should I not go there?
Yeah.
And if you're talking to someone like Jackleen, you're going to get, if you go there, you're going to learn something. You may not have a great experience, but you'll learn something that you really need, and you should do it anyway, or just feel it out, right? The card giving you a hard yes or a hard no is bypassing all of that subtle information, and you'll find yourself very, very confused if you're just looking for just a yes or just a no, because there's the world is full of these little grays, which I thought it was sort of an interesting deck. But if you have that deck, try messing with it, because you'll find that half the time you'll get yes and half the time you'll get no.
It's
just
probability.
Yeah.
And the beauty of looking at a card, like I hold up one of my favorite cards here, is that your eye will be drawn to any part of that card at any particular time. There's so many so many different meanings of this card. I love that I pulled this card. Well, actually, it was the second card I pulled, because the first one was like the king of something, and I wanted a better example. But and that might have been a good, if someone tuned in to hear about Bob, and I got the King of Wands, by the way, if you're talking about Bob, right? But basically, the star means even if Bob is your man, he better treat you like the star that you are, right? He better honor who you truly are. And this is a card of meditation, by the way. There we go.
Well, let's go back to that. You said I love what you said about meditation. Talk about that. How much should they do? Because people hear meditation and think, oh, you don't have to go to the monastery.
By the way, I should call it something different, but I never do. And here's my 30-second course in meditation.
Ooh, give us that.
Sit quietly with your back straight. It doesn't look like my back is straight right now just because of the angle of the camera, but you sit quietly with your back straight. You close your eyes and just start to breathe a little bit slower, and maybe even put your hand on your belly. Maybe before this, you've set a little timer on your phone. If this is your first foray into meditation, or you haven't done it in a long time, set a timer for 3 minutes. I'm serious. 3 minutes, right? And whereas you're focusing on your breath, you're inflating when you breathe in, you're deflating when you breathe out. Easy. That's how a baby breathes. And we've forgotten how to breathe, basically. So that alone will lift your mood and lift your spirits and put you in a floaty, more positive place. Okay. And so you keep your eyes closed for the whole 3 minutes. But once you've gotten your breathing down, it's in a rhythm, and you feel a little calmer. Imagine above your head a manhole-sized circle of light opening about 4 feet above your head, and a shaft of light coming all the way down through your body and down to the core of the earth. And just dwell in that, eyes closed, breathing deeply. And you know what? Thoughts are going to come. Meditation is not about push those thoughts away. It's about breathe it out. Unless it's something important, then you could have put a piece of paper there where you can just scribble it if it's that important and you think it's going to go away. But yeah, you may get ideas during that time. More likely, you'll get ideas later because you meditated. You'll be in a more intuitive space to receive later because you've done this little bit of grounding. And I say do that if you're just starting out. Do that for 2 to 3 weeks, where you're just doing 3 minutes. You can always, if you're feeling into it, you can always just shut off the timer. You know where your phone is, shut off the timer and keep going. And I would suggest that. and you're working up to about 20 minutes. You can do more if you want, but I think 20 minutes is optimal. And as early as you can in the day is good. And then throughout the day, do little mini meditations to just kind of bring yourself back to that center. Because when you're centered, things are going well. If you're running late, I had a spiritual teacher who said, when you're late, you're not late. But what she meant was when you're late, you're not late if you're centered. If you chill, you accept. Acceptance is a big part, just like with when you throw the cards. Okay, I got the tower or whatever. I'm going to accept that. What does that mean? How can I work with it? Right? So that's what you're doing when you're meditating. You're just bringing yourself back to center. So I could easily call it centering. That sounds real woo-woo. Meditation, I don't know. That sounds like too hard. Maybe you've got to put your tongue up on the top of your mouth. Or you can do that. It helps. You can go like this. It helps. These are just little cues that you give your body. Hey, you're chilling out now. Your eyes are closed. You're just telling your body to relax for a bit.
I want to go back to something you said. I love that. That was a great explanation, and you're not making it this daunting, like go to the temple and meditate for 4 hours, whatever. I love that you make it like human. There's something else you said I want to go back to a little bit. When you were talking about the cards and sort of accepting, how do you feel about people like partnering up and kind of doing readings for each other? Is that helpful, or is that kind of, I don't know, sometimes
to
it can be
point.
To a point. Okay.
To a point. I do this with my friends that I used to work with at the old bookstore. We do that for each other, and it can be helpful to a point. I think you want even more detachment from that. You want someone that, that's their business. That's what they're doing. And, they don't have any stake in it. They don't have pre-formed ideas about you. I mean, some of my clients I know a lot about, but I can still get good readings for. But yeah, I think it's good, but there's something in it. There's sort of I'm trading you this, so I'm getting that. And I haven't found it in recent years. Truthfully, I haven't found it to be tremendously helpful. Sometimes it is. Sometimes I get just what I need. And other times it's kind of like, well, so you could do that, certainly. But I would take that a little bit with a grain of salt.
I was just thinking about people trying to, find people to mentor with, because for me, the biggest thing was practice, because when I was in a practice group and being able to get a sense of what was yes and what was no, based a little bit on feedback in an environment where, because the energy is different. Yes feels different than no, or when you're giving wrong information, it has a slightly different tinge to it, but there's a almost takes practice to know it. And I love what you said about the cards too, because I can see when you get three things, if I have this fantasy of this place that I'm thinking about going to, and I think it's going to be amazing, I suddenly start seeing Jesus in the sky, in the clouds. We kind of get sucked into our own fantasy, and having an outsider look at it and say, yeah, that's not really what the chariot means, or yeah, that's not really what the tower says. The tower doesn't say, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. It's nice. Any tips for somebody like that? Because I know practice groups are hard to find. I don't know. Any ideas?
Lower your expectations and kind of know that there's a range. Yeah, practicing is so different than being with a professional. I noticed the difference between like someone who's just learning, or who actually doesn't do cards a lot. Like they don't do it anymore. Or they don't do, versus someone who's working. That's their job. I mean, this is my job. That's your job. And so when you work with someone who is doing it consistently, they know, what a yes is for someone else that you don't have any attachment to, right? And you've had a yes yesterday, and you had a no yesterday, and you had well, you'll grow a lot in this, but you probably won't marry Bob. You had that the other day, right? And so, and I back it up. Astrology is a science. That's how I look at astrology.
Yeah, talk about astrology a little bit here. We didn't get into that yet.
Yeah, it gets conflated with like psychic arts, right? But it is a
True.
science. The thing about astrology is there are many different scientists, and they have different way of interpreting that science. A trine is a trine, which is a wonderful, beautiful aspect between two planets that suggests harmony. A square is a square, which means there's going to be tension. So there are a couple of days every year I tell people about. I think I might have mentioned this on your last podcast. Is that 120 days from your birthday? That's a square. That's a trine. Excuse me. That's a trine to your sun. You have two of these days that are even better than your birthday because it's a trine rather than a conjunction, which is the trine is the most favorable aspect in astrology. So those 2 days are really auspicious. And when I do people's personal lucky days, I always point those out. If we're in that range, when I do a session, I'll do a month's worth of lucky days because that's about all I can handle. Because it gets a little mathy, but we do the lucky days and say, oh, look, this is when your sun is aspected favorably. This is when your moon is aspected favorably. So it's good to know those lucky days. Then there are the days that are 90 degrees or 90 days away from your sun. Those are the don't go there days. If you meet someone who's born on that day, don't date them, don't marry them, most likely, unless I've looked at the whole chart and I say, okay, there's so much great stuff going on here that sure, right? Because there's bound to be some squares, but as a general rule, and then those people that I've met that have been 90 degrees away from me, oh my God. And my husband and I are actually in that trine of suns. Doesn't mean we get along all the time, but it's doable. There's a base compatibility there.
I love that. We're going to wrap it up here soon, but is there anything that I didn't think to ask that you think people should know about?
Let's see. I'm kind of going.
What's on your list? What was on your list?
I had, knowing your own moon sign as like number one, right? Know what sign. You can find that out online at any of these, sites. If you don't want to have a session, but know what your moon sign is and be that. I mean, I'm still learning the moon sign, my own moon sign, which is Virgo, which means I'm supposed to be very organized and cleanly. And my husband would laugh, right? But that's what I'm sort of growing into, this more Virgo part of myself. And it is really about service, like giving. That's what Virgo is about, being that servant. You have a Cancer moon. So it's same thing. It's nurturing. It's and you probably have to work on that a little bit, right? You have to work sometimes to be that. Who knows?
Yeah, I tend to be, not that you guys all need to know this, but I tend to be more logical than it might appear. I know I do psychic readings for a living, but I don't trust anybody's study unless I know who paid for it, how many people were in it.
Very scientific, right? Yeah.
Very scientific. And I'm like, the study is bullshit. But the stuff that my spirit guide tells me, that's true. Like the contrast. And that's what I always kind of joke with people. It's like, a lot of us are like that out there. We have this sort of contrasting,
oh my
makes
God.
no sense, but I'm also this and I'm also that. And I would encourage people to sort of embrace that.
Yes. And that's one of the best things about astrology is that, say you get one of those printed reports about your astrological makeup, and one says, oh, you're very shy, and the other one says, oh, you're very outgoing. Embrace that, because that's a nice balance, right? You'll have moments of both. And I think the best is kind of blend has some contradiction in it as well. But you want to strive to be your moon and to honor your moon, honor your lunar return. There's also another period that I like to talk about. It's kind of your personal new moon, when the moon is in your sun sign. And a lot of people think that that's when you have your big spiritual awakening. It could very well be. So I would meditate during that time as well. But I find that to be a little bit more of an outgoing time, that to be a kind of more of a lucky time. So when the moon is in your sun sign, it can be a little bit lucky for you.
So one of the things I love about you, though, particularly, and I know there's other people that do this, but I love this blending of the science. See, the scientist in me loves the blending of the sciencey days. This thing is this aspected, and there's that. I'm not using the right words, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then in bringing the intuitive aspect into it. I love that because I see a lot of clients with not necessarily those same things, but two things that come together and trying to embrace that as a soul, because we're so conditioned in this world that if you're a doctor, you're a doctor, and this is the only way a doctor's supposed to look at things. But I have a friend who's a medical doctor. The medical doctor does psychic readings, like medical intuition, and she has to do it on the down low because the board wouldn't really love that.
Yeah.
The medical board wouldn't really love her using her psychic ability to find out what's wrong with your thyroid. But it is interesting to see this little dance here. And that's one of the things I love about the way you do it, because you add that the fun, playful, intuitive stuff, but also, well, let's look at the chart.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I can look at an angle on a chart and say, my eye can be drawn to an area in a chart, just like in a card, right? So I really want to talk about this. Like, we don't have all the time in the world. They got a half-hour reading or an hour reading, and I want to get to what's most important, particularly for what they're dealing with now. And my eye will be drawn to a certain angle or a certain transit that's going on right now over their chart. So yeah, there is an intuitive sense to that. The science is the science. When I do transformational, which is a studied astrology appointment, I actually write down, I actually study the chart beforehand. And so there's more science in that.
I love it. I love it, Jackleen. So how do people get in touch with you? I'm obviously going to put all the links in there in the description. Also, I do want to be clear. I love Jackleen's name. She spells a little differently than most people. So look on the screen before you're looking for her online. Jackleen is just, it's Jackleen.
It's the Hooked on Phonics version.
Oh, I love that. That's a great way of putting it.
No Q.
No Q.
It wasn't working for me. But yeah, it's JackleenHolton.com. Yes, with that interesting spelling. And that's where you can set up appointments with me, read about what I do. I'm on Facebook, Astrology by Jackleen. I haven't posted recently on that. Sometimes I think it's a dead zone. Sometimes I don't. I don't know. You can sign up for my newsletter on the site. I have Patreon, Astrology by Jackleen, and also Instagram, which I haven't fixed. I got to get more in the groove with that. But
I'm the same way, preaching to the choir on that one. I know exactly what you're talking about. Jackleen's great. She also has, I don't know if you're okay with me saying that you're an amazing poet. Like,
thank you.
Your poetry books are just out of this world. I don't know why you're not famous for that yet. But
probably because I have to work. I have a day job and
and a kid, so you have two day jobs.
Writing poetry as much as I would love to, but I try to as much as I can.
I love it. I love it. Well, if Eminem ever ends up using one of your songs, I can already picture which poem it's going to be. If he ever ends up using one of yours, then you'll be famous. So there you go.
All right.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts before we end?
No, I would say ground yourself, center yourself, and know your moon.
Love it, love it, love it. And enjoy 4th of July. That's coming up. I'm so excited about that for everyone. I love the idea, everyone, of figuring out for yourself, using your own intuition. The things that I say, or that Jackleen and I say, or anybody says, obviously whatever you feel tends to be more important, right? And your impressions and your senses of it. And when we give our power to somebody else, we kind of lose a little bit of ourself in this. This is one of the reasons I want people to start working on developing their own intuition, because, Jackleen and I have spent years practicing this and getting good at it, but you all have pieces of it. Some of you have more, some of you have more natural ability than others, but working on playing with that with yourself, because, I started off with a very conventional day job. I was selling software. So here you go. Now you know. Okay. So thanks everybody for showing up. I will put our links in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. Please like this. I really appreciate it, and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. Okay. Thanks guys. Thanks. Bye. See you next time.
Bye.